This episode of Born to Baseball is sponsored by the BTB Travel Team and Training Tracker. Are you a parent or player searching for travel teams or training facilities in your area? Or are you a coach looking to expand your reach? Then you have to check out the BTB Triple T Tracker at borntobaseball.com. Make sure your team is represented. Let's go.
Calling all ball players. Are you ready to take your game to the next level? Were you born to baseball? Then bring it in. It's game time.
Check it out.
Hey guys, welcome to the Born to Baseball podcast. Today I'm here with Dr. Tom Hanson, who's coached baseball players ranging from little leaguers to world champions for over 35 years. Dr. Hanson earned a degree in sports psychology from the University of Virginia and was a professor and head baseball coach at Skidmore College in New York. He has worked with many professional sports and business organizations as a performance enhancement coach and consultant, including the New York Yankees, Texas Rangers, and Minnesota Twins, as well as Microsoft and Verizon. In addition to co-authoring Heads Up Baseball with Dr. Ken Ravizza, Dr. Hanson authored Play Big, Mental Toughness Secrets that Take Baseball Players to the Next Level. Thank you for being here.
You're very welcome. Thank you for that introduction. Sounds like an interesting guy.
For sure.
Looking forward to seeing what he has to say.
So I actually first learned about you when my parents bought me a copy of Heads Up Baseball 2.0,
Oh,
which you
right.
co-authored
Great.
with Ken Ravizza.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great book. Like once I was finished, I told my parents I have to go back and read that again.
Cool. Yeah,
It
you
was
read the
really,
whole
really
thing?
great. Yeah.
Wow.
It was really, really nice.
That's great. That's great. Because it's not a small book. We decided to err on the side of inclusion rather than making it, minimal.
Yeah.
So I respect that you read that whole thing, because it's also designed where you don't have to read it all. You could really just pick it up and read a quote and put it down. But it really is designed to go start to finish.
I'd like you to share a bit about your journey. So what inspired you to become a sports psychologist, and how did you begin working with different athletes?
I would say I got into it because I was really good at baseball when I was young, and then not good enough to go beyond college. I ended up playing Division III ball. I had some great experiences along the way. One of the biggest things for me was I was always really good because I was big and tall. So I say that not boastfully, but just because I didn't work for it. I just was, just came out and could hit and play the game without having to work at it. And then I ran into a ceiling my junior year of high school. I really thought I should have been playing, and I wasn't. And so that next winter in Minnesota, I grew up in Moorhead, Minnesota, I worked at it. I bought a couple books, The Science of Hitting by Ted Williams and The Art of Hitting 300 by Charlie Lau. And I went down my basement and I swung a bat. I swung this big Bratz bat, there's a weighted red bat. I swung that, took a big chunk out of the pool table we had in the basement. And I came out that year and I just crushed. I just mashed the ball, set hitting records and home runs, and it was really great. But I still wasn't really good enough. No one was around me, was going to a Division I school. And I kind of said, okay, I'm going to Division III school. I went to Luther College in Iowa. And my next big event there was, two things. One, that happened in this order. During Christmas break, during my sophomore year of college, I had to declare a major, and I didn't know what I wanted to major in. And I literally sat down at my desk at my home and said, okay, what do I like? And I said, well, sports. So I write, okay, sports. And then my editing head was like, okay, well, what's something real? I said, well, I had this psychology class. It was a basic requirement. And I liked it. I liked the teacher, and I liked that they just were really telling me stuff that I already knew, just putting names to it. So it was pretty easy for me. And then 2 weeks later, so I said, okay, I'll major in psychology. 2 weeks later, I was in a bookstore and I see this book called Sports Psyching, which I can see on my shelf right over the top of my computer here to this day. Sports Psyching. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a field called sports psychology. And so I then wrote some letters, because nobody at Luther, and in 1982, really knew about sports psychology. And so I wrote to where there were graduate programs and came back. If you really wanted to work with people who were having trouble and you want to help them be normal, go into psychology. And if you really wanted to help people be great, go into physical education, what became kinesiology. So I took that, went to the University of Illinois, fantastic time there, really learning about how to help people play great. Then I wanted to be with the best. So then University of Virginia for my PhD, because there was a guy named Bob Rotella, and I thought he was the best. And it was a fantastic experience to learn from the best. Backing up, though, back to this other experience at Luther that was so pivotal to me was that, which is in Decorah, Iowa, we finished last place my freshman year. It was cool. I started every game, but we got last place. And then, but what we had was great leaders. We had these 3 guys from my sophomore year that were really strong leaders. And they're like, come on, man, we can do this. We can do this. We'd have get-togethers and we'd talk over things. It's like, who's better than Joe Knight at second base in this conference? Nobody. And who's better at third base than Leighton Wisty? Nobody. And we got Jake Amin, we got Struby. And it's like, let's go. And darn if we didn't win the conference. We went from worst to first and went to the regional. We had a goal to have our coach be
awesome.
the conference coach of the year. And he was regional coach of the year. I mean, we had talent. So it's not, I heard you say skills and mindset. And so it wasn't just that we had meetings and talked about it. We had some good players, but we did go from worst to first and won it those next 3 years while I was there. And then it was another 20 till they did it again. And so just seeing that, oh my gosh, that power of leadership. It wasn't the coach changed. It was the power of leadership and of teamwork that was pulled together with everyone focused in the same direction, staying focused on a together on one target. It just has massive power to it. So that's one of my principles, is stay on target. Pick a clear target and stay on it. And that's what we did. And so that's some of how I got into it here. So I can go more into, further on with my history if you want. Pick it up from there. But let me see if you have any questions on what I've
I mean,
so far.
If you could share a little bit about your work with some major league teams and then professional athletes and teams.
Yeah, gladly. So just to round that out, after Virginia, I went to a head baseball coach and a college professor at Skidmore College in upstate New York. Was there for 7 years and then just decided to leave because I really wanted to work more with athletes and executives. And I moved to DC, and then I worked with the Texas Rangers, and I worked with the Twins, and then the Yankees called up, and that's how I moved down here to Tampa in 2001. And that just lasted that 1 year. And I've been here ever since. So that was my working with, that's just the general history from where I'm coming from. And in there, I wrote Heads Up Baseball, as you mentioned, in the 90s, and then Heads Up Baseball 2 and Play Big. So I would say working with professional players, a good story. I mean, it's really about freedom. It's really about freedom, but I kind of liken myself to, in my highest version of myself, a sort of a sports Abraham Lincoln, about emancipation and freedom, because athletes, like myself and everyone else, really, we tend to limit ourselves with the beliefs that we have. I can think of a player. I don't think I can really name him, but back one of the early ones when I was with the Rangers, who had been in the minor leagues for 7 or 8 years and was really struggling and always would get hurt and get into this and that. And as we talked about mindset and how he saw himself, something as a victim, like, oh, things are always going wrong for me, and why did this happen to me, and this guy did this, and this guy did this, always looking outside of himself at what was going on. And through our conversations, he shifted that and able to be like, you know what, I'm responsible for this. I've kind of been in what I would refer to now as a trance. Like, you go into a trance, and people think of a trance of like a hypnosis and, oh, you're going to go dancing with a broom or something. But we go into trances all the time, pretty much all day, every day. It just doesn't seem that way. You don't think of it because you're in a trance. And so it's a mindset of like what I call being a victim, which he was being, to being a player, which means he's creating from the inside. And he said, you know what? Here's who I'm going to be as a player. And it's as if you take on a character. I liken it now very much to like when you play MLB The Show.
Yes.
And so at the beginning, you kind of pick the strengths and then therefore weaknesses of the guy, and you create this character.
Mm-hmm.
Or the computer spits out a default one, right?
Yep.
You just jump in and there's your guy. Or you can go in and give him a beard, right? Oh, and long hair and this bat strength and this foot speed and so forth. And so there's the default, and then there's the one that you create. And with this guy, it's like, you know what? I'm going to create myself as this guy. And I'll even go with having people create character names for who they are. When you're being a victim, what's a name for that? And a lot of them we can't even really say on a podcast. And then when you're really who you want to be, your highest version of yourself that you've selected and that you've developed and trained, who is that? And give a name to that person. And then it's really, this guy chose, it's like, I'm going to be that. And just a light bulb went off, and off he went to end up being in the big leagues and being on a World Series winning team. He just really went from living sort of a nightmare, riding the buses in the minor leagues, to living the dream, winning the World Series and having
That's
a
really
really strong major league career.
That's a really great success story.
Yeah, thanks. Another one that comes to mind is really fun, where this guy recently, a minor league guy, was really struggling, and every time he went over 4, he would go for extra work in a batting cage and try and fix whatever was wrong. And what we talked about was like, maybe there's nothing wrong other than you're just playing baseball. Baseball is hard at any level, much less professional level.
Yep.
And so why don't you find a way to go back and evaluate your at bats and see really if there's something, if your hand path needs to get fixed, something with your hips or your waist or your this or that, because that really can lead you down a rabbit hole. And then it's just one thing after another. Again, it's a fundamental mindset of something's wrong and I gotta fix it. If you're coming from something's wrong, there's nothing that will fix it because you think something's wrong. It's a mindset. It's like being in a pool. You go in a pool. Let's go and pool down here in Florida, not one in New York at the moment. You're wet and you can't really make a dry move because you're wet. If someone throws you a towel, that's how you dry off, right? Well, you're in the pool. So everything's going to be wet. And so you get that's a mindset of like, hey, something's wrong with me. Then you'll just move from thing to thing and never get it. And so this guy cracked that. And it's like, well, let me elevate, which is one of my main principles also, is to understand how we're designed as humans, that we have thoughts and feelings, but we are not our thoughts and feelings. There's somebody inside there that's watching the thoughts and feelings. And so he got really good at elevating and looking, say, oh, look, where my mind goes right now is I want to fix something. I'm 0 for 4. I'm frustrated. So there must be something to do and that I need to fix. And he could watch that and say, look at that. Look at my mind go that way. And do I really think there's something to fix? No, I don't think so. So let's go watch Netflix or something to get myself at peace so I can have clarity and calmness, which is much more important than trying to fix his hand path. Not that mechanics aren't important. Physics applies to the world. It's just that really you want to have access to your talent. So that's how I would summarize, is what I do with this whole Abe Lincoln thing is help people have access to their talent. You can't play better than you can play. I couldn't help you play for the Yankees this afternoon, right? Oh, come on, Evan, believe. Believe you can hit 95 on the black. And no. However, having access to your talent means, I can play this well, and I do play that well. But most players like, well, I can play X well, and they perform at X minus N, where N is some some measure. They play below that. And that's more the mental game thing, is access to your ability than doing something impossible.
Wow, that's really great. Is there one athlete or a team that you had a lot of, like, the most fun training with, and why did you have like so much fun with them?
Well, I love that question because that's what I most want to do. When I was with your beloved Yankees, it wasn't that fun. It was a dream come true that wasn't that fun because they kind of weren't ready for it. It was a little bit more than they were ready for, because I didn't play. By their standards, I didn't play. Meaning I didn't play professionally. I played through college. I was an all Iowa Conference player. And so it was sort of like, what's Dr. Shrinky doing here? And it can easily fall into, hey, if something's wrong with you mentally, go talk to Hanson. It's like, you can imagine how long the line at my door was for that. And so that wasn't that much fun, even though there were great highlights. What I really want to have is fun. And so what's funnest is when someone's really into it. I've got a player. I got a player that comes to mind. It's a softball player, a high school softball player, that is like, well, I'm number 25 in the country, and I want to be number 1. What do I need to do? And it was fun. It's like, there was nothing. She never didn't feel like there was something wrong with her. It wasn't like, oh, I'm ready to quit baseball, or I have the yips. If you see my site, yipsbegone.com,
Yep.
I've worked with a ton of players and still do. Major leaguers to 10-year-olds who have trouble making a simple throw. I get more of that than where this woman was coming from, which is like, I want to be the best. And that's what's fun when I have those. That's the funnest. It's deeply satisfying to help someone out of a slump. But like this person, I made a video for her, a visualization exercise where she would then see these better and better and better versions of herself in front, and then go more of her, and then morph into and go into, imagine what that's like, see what you'll see, hear what you'll hear, feel what you feel when it's even bigger and better version of you. And then I get these texts saying, oh, how's this? It's going great. And then I talked to her, even, there was a period, not even a month. It's like, well, I've done it every day and sometimes twice. And it's like, that's fun, because then you got someone that's really into it, and you can really blast off. I was talking with a golfer yesterday in England. I do a lot of stuff on Zoom like this. And he just is really taking the stuff and run. We clear out a lot of negative emotions. I do some interesting stuff with tapping and other kind of what we call psychosensory modalities, not just talking and not even just visualizing. Certainly using the breath and routines and the stuff that someone would normally think of in sports psychology, which would be in Heads Up Baseball. A lot of stuff that I do most of isn't in the book. So here's the thing. Most of the stuff you hear about in sports psychology, the routines and the breaths and so forth, is about tools that will help you deal with stress that comes up, or anxiety or fear, or maybe even frustration. What I'm most interested in is having that not come up. Does that make sense? Derek Jeter. I love Derek Jeter. I've got to talk with him a lot. And I liked it because, quick Derek Jeter story. Besides when I robbed him of a home run during batting practice, I reached up over the fence and grabbed it. That was funny. But since you're a Yankee fan, right? You ready for a Derek Jeter story?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm sitting on my couch in 2000-ish and watching him up to bat, some playoff game. They're down by a run, and he's up to bat. And I'm sitting there on the couch and I'm watching him, and it just comes to me. It's like, you know what? He looks like a little leaguer. And like, with all due respect, as in, he looks like that 12-year-old kid that can just rake. It's like, oh no, Jeter's up, back up. And he steps up and he's all wiggly and like, whoa, this dude is confident and this dude is he's going to hit the ball. Everything about him said he's going to hit it. It might not be pretty. It wasn't, the most beautiful swing often, but he's going to freaking hit it. And he's going to get it done. And sure enough, he did. He had a base hit. They scored a run and, they win. And so a year later, I end up getting a call and I'm working for the Yankees and I'm helping people transition from AAA to the big leagues. So what do? I talk to people who've done it and say, how did you do that? That's mostly how I've done my career. Like my research for my PhD was interviewing Hank Aaron, Rod Cruz, Stan Musial, Corey Yastrzemski, Pete Rose, Tony Oliva, the best, the great hitters, and said, how did you do that? And then I help other people do it. It isn't, I was a Division III athlete myself. But I'm sitting there talking to Derek Jeter, and I said, how do you do that? How do you be really good under pressure? And he goes, pressure? I go, well, yeah, like 50,000 people in the playoffs, and they're all screaming, and everyone's going to. He goes, that's fun. Really? I said, yeah. He goes, more. I go, with 50,000 people? He goes, yeah, more people is more fun. Really? So he said, yeah, to me, it's just like Little League. And I like, oh my gosh, I can't, but my jaw just hit the floor. I can't believe you just said that and I told him my couch part of the story. And he's like, yeah. So you see the point there is that he saw the situation as fun. So he wasn't in need of all the routines and everything you read when you read Heads Up Baseball 2.0, that those are great to have. And I'm all for them. Obviously I teach them. What I want people to understand is that much bigger than that. It's like an iceberg. That's what's on the surface. Much bigger is the belief system underneath. And the key distinction in the underneath belief system is this a fun challenge or is it a dangerous threat? If you're up to bat and you feels like a dangerous threat, well, then you better have a bunch of stuff to go to be breathing and routines and all the focal points and all that stuff. Yeah. And if it's like, this is fun, oh my gosh, like your wiffle ball. Hey, Evan's up, back up. And Evan's like here. And it's like, oh, did you do your pre-pitch routine? Well, you maybe did, but not something you were conscious of. You're just up there wiggling the bat, ready to just mash. So there. I don't know. I mean, it's not that I don't know. Well, that is true. I also don't know. I can talk very authoritatively about this. And then every person's different and every situation's different. So what I just said about somebody might be the opposite for someone else.
I know you also bring up the philosophy of the internal lights, like green, yellow, red, and knowing which one you're at. So how can a youth baseball player determine what they're feeling in like real game time?
Okay, cool. That's a super cool question. Well, one is to hang on to being 12. I'll answer your question in a moment. But the bigger thing, again, is why do you play baseball? For fun, right? And it's more and more a kid like your age might never even play a pickup game. As sad as that can be. Might never play in the street or someone's backyard, or that everything to the left of second base is foul because you only have 3 guys. Something like that. That's beautiful, and I wish that for everyone. And that's the fun, the spirit of fun. And it can be, it's a dangerous time right now for youth sport because it's so parent focused and structured that you can lose that. So number one thing is that failing of fun, like, I'm going to mash this ball. Think of that as a green light. When you're watching your parents drive, they go up to an intersection. If the light is green, they just go. And so each pitch in a game is like at intersection or crossroads. And so you can check the traffic light that's inside you. And if you're feeling good, like, yeah, let's go, man, bring it. I'm going to mash this. Or pitching, it's like, this ball's going right there. You're about to sit down, brother. That's a green light. You're feeling good. Yellow light is, whoa, I'm not sure. It's all speeding up. It's like it's going faster. I feel nervous. Everyone's yelling and, don't swing at that high one. Evan, that was over your head. Come on. It's like, I didn't know that. So that's that's what I call a yellow light. And then a red light is even just worse. You're freaking out. It's all speeding up. You're having trouble breathing. So if you think of having this traffic light inside of you, it's like, how am I feeling? If your thought goes in, am I really feeling? I'm feeling good. Really? You're feeling good? And if you're feeling good, roll on. Off you go. But if you have any kind of yellow light, you're feeling a little unsettled, that's when you can go to the different tools, because now we're in the moment. You're not going to be able to sit and say, oh, just have fun. You can say that, but it's a lot easier said than done. And you can't just tell someone, hey, Derek Jeter just had fun. You go have fun. It's a much deeper process in that to do what I call inner lens crafting, which is the work to get someone to see things differently. That's back on that fun challenge versus the dangerous threat. But you can use a breath, and that would be the number one thing I would say for someone to do when they're on the field is to take a breath. So when you're in the hole, take a few deep breaths in, out. Slow it all down like that. 2 or 3 or 4 breaths. And if you're really nervous, do it in the dugout before you're in the hole. And then, well, you're probably in the hole and the leak. I mean, you're probably in the dugout the whole time. So then really breathing. If you feel, boom, your heart's beating, it's like, oh, Evan, you're on deck. Oh, you feel that in your body. Go to your breath. Inhale, ideally in and out through the nose, but you may have too much adrenaline going, too excited to keep it in and out through your nose. So in and out your mouth is fine, but just see if you can bring it down to your belly, but you might not be able to do that. Go into your chest. The best thing to do is to practice it, like right now while you're listening. In and then out. And really finish it. You redheads at baseball, you know Mike Trout said, oh, one of the main things he got working with Ken Ravizza, to finish his breath, be outside the batter's box, finish his breath, finish the exhale, and then step in. Because a lot of times a guy will take a breath, and as he's breathing out, he steps in, go, let's go. And it's all speeding up. The breath can really slow it down. Use the breath to slow the game down and really then lock in on what you need to do. So I would say use the breath, and I would say be really clear about something simple that you're up to do. When I said I interviewed Hank Aaron, Rod Cruz, Dan Music Coach, Jim Skippy Rose, most of them, what they said, I go, Hank Aaron, what were you doing? And person, would say, well, what do you mean? What he's doing? He's hitting. No, what were you in that batter's box to do? And he said, I wanted to put the fat part of the bat on the ball. I asked Stan Musial. He's the number 2 all-time total bases leader. You know, total base home run is
4.
Right, double 2. Oh, so that's 6. And so the all-time leader is Hank Aaron, and he is like 12 miles ahead of Stan Musial. So it's just insane. Hank Aaron, how did you do that? And then he told me. And Stan Musial's number 2 guy, I talked to him. What were you doing in the batter's box? And he said, well, I always knew where the fat part of the bat was, and I want to put it on the ball. And I was, yeah, but come on, what else? Mr. PhD wants it to be more complicated, but that's really what he was doing. So helping a 12-year-old or a 32-year-old major leaguer, I would say, really go to that breath, and then be super clear on something really specific, fat part of the bat on the ball. Or if I'm pitching, this ball is going right there. Take your breath, visualize the ball going there, and then just trust it. Just let it go. The visualizing, like say for a pitcher here, it's sort of like when you go out to eat. You'll sit, here's the menu, and say, okay, I'll have the ham and cheese sandwich. And then they go and they make it, and you just trust them to make it and bring it to you. So you can think of the visualizing as saying, okay, body, I'll have a fastball there, please, with, the dressing on the side. And then just let your body throw it.
Yeah, that's really, really great. I'm definitely going to implement that.
Thank you.
We know that our bodies and our results will match what we're thinking about. So how can we implement that? And what does really being self-aware mean?
Well, that's a way above average question, Evan. Being aware is meaning being conscious of. In the book, we give an example of like think of the big toe, say on your right foot right now, and then wiggle it. Now it's in your consciousness. Awareness means in your consciousness. It doesn't mean you're thinking about it. It just means it's in it's occurring to you. That's what I would technically say, since you're going to ask a big league question, kind of get some big league words. It's going to like, well, it's occurring to me. It's in my field of consciousness. Whereas now it it wasn't, but now it is. But while I'm talking like this, you maybe even lost your big toe. Now bring it back, and now think about what you had for dinner last night. What did you have for dinner last night?
Had some soup.
All right, cool. And then you just lost your big toe, right? Because your mind had to go back, but now your big toe's back. So that's awareness, is having it be in your consciousness, having it be sort of in play. And so being self-aware means having a lot of consciousness of how you actually roll. In baseball, I'll liken it to, go back to MLB The Show, since a lot of guys listening would have played that. It'd be like, okay, you're on base and knowing that you're a speed guy, or knowing that you're a big slugger and you're not going to steal this base. So just click ahead and get around to your next at bat. Whereas like my son loves to steal bases, and so he always gives himself a fast guy and steals bases. So it's really knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at. It's my own challenge, and I work with it with executives at the same, just to broaden it out. It's like, what are you really good at? I like this term this guy Dan Sullivan has of your unique ability. What are you uniquely good at? And then really do that. I had a chance, for example, and this is again how good your question is, have my son hit with a couple big leaguers. I know these guys are in town here, so we were able to take my 16-year-old son to go hit with Kyle Schwarber of the Cubs and Oscar Mercado of the Indians. And I pulled him aside, both those guys, individually, and I said, hey, here's my son, 16. What do you got for advice? And they both said the exact same thing. Know yourself. You just got to go and be yourself. And so it's a question like, well, what does that even mean? It's like, well, are you fast? Yeah. Well, then don't try and hit home runs. Have you ever hit a home run? No, but I really want to. Okay. Well, this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to do that. Maybe it comes on. Like Mercado is a great example because he's hitting home runs now, and he's in his latish 20s, I think. And he's a fast guy. So he needs to square the ball up and then get on base and steal the base and take an extra base on something and then score on a ground ball. Know yourself and really focus on being that which you are. I mean, it's endless. I could talk all day about what it can mean to be aware, but people mostly aren't very good at it. Is what I'll say. I'll say one thing. Joe Madden, now of the Angels, told me that he's astonished how often major league players don't know what pitch they hit best. They'll ask him, hey, where do you hit the ball the best? I don't know. Usually fastballs. No, that's what I mean. Like, where in the strike zone? Where does your swing? I don't know. Or even sometimes like, hey, hit the home run. What did you hit? I don't know. And so it's really knowing yourself, and it's just could really go on and on. So I'll liken it back to this though, just to kind of wrap it together, is when you're at your best, what's a name for that character? Like the Beast or the Man or Unstoppable or Mr. Fun. You could put Mr. something on it and just make it up like it's a character, like a Marvel character. And then when you're at your worst, a Crybaby or Mr. Whiner or Mr. Why Me or like that. And then, okay, well, that's now you become self-aware. You can, the same it can be this or this. And then the power comes into, well, choose. Now get good at choosing, Mr. Wonderful. Get good at choosing and being that guy, deliberately going out and doing that. So there. That's my answer.
Wow. Going back to the book, Heads Up Baseball 2.0, you outlined a process called Ramp C, where the C stands for compete. Could you tell us a little more about like what Ramp C stands for?
Yeah, it came because I like models and I like to have a conceptual structure for things. It's like, so it wouldn't just be random things. I've kind of thrown out somewhat random things here so far, and I didn't want to do that. I want to have it be a book that has where it all holds together. So Ken and I talked, who passed away now almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, which is still hard to believe it. And it'd be like, okay, responsibility and awareness are these two. Be responsible, choose your own thinking instead of just being on default. Choose, I'm going to be Mr. Wonderful. I'm not going to be Mr. Whiner. And so that's choosing. I'm going to constantly choose. So that's at the heart of the whole thing. And then awareness, Ken was it's just so huge on this, knowing it's two parts of awareness. One is knowing yourself and how you generally are. I spoke to that somewhat. And another is knowing what's going on in this moment. And so what you want to be able to do is be good at that. So that's R and A, responsibility and awareness. What's another fundamental mission? Just a sense of clarity. This is what I'm going up there to do. Like I said, Aaron, fat part of the bat on the ball. That's a mission. He's on a mission to put the fat part of the bat in the ball. A-Rod said that was his mantra. He just repeated, I hit the ball solid. That's what he said. I hit the ball solid. What do you do for a living? I hit the ball solid. And so that was his mission for hitting. And can have a bigger mission in terms of being a major leaguer, something it can take different forms, but having a clear target. So we said that was big. And then preparation is huge. Mentally prepare, getting yourself ready is to compete is a huge part of it. Because sometimes guys get in. I used to throw a lot of batting practice. I could tell a guy got in. Was he really ready to hit, or was he hitting to get ready, or was he ready to hit? And so mental preparation. Are you ready? Get ready. So that's ramp. And we actually picked these, and then I realized that it formed a word. It wasn't that we wanted to have ramp up to compete. It was just luck, really. And then C, ramp C. That's why the C, you can see we didn't go out of our way to make it rampy or make it one word, because then the whole thing really becomes about competing. C is compete. And that's what we found people were most missing when we talked to college coaches and asked them and pro coaches, what's missing in today's athlete? They don't compete. It's a showcase mentality. It's what can I do? But they don't get out there and compete. And so we really oriented the book toward helping people compete, because the mental game is not about thinking. My early days at Skidmore, when I was a head coach coming out with a new fresh PhD, the guys I was like, hey, you guys did a good job with your breaths and you did your routines, and yeah, we lost 13-2, but you worked your process. It's like, well, no, that's not it. That you got to do it with this will to win. People say, oh, it's about the process. And I would also say, no, it's not. It's about playing to win. And I'm going to focus on my process, but with it in my mind that I'm here to win. That's the goal of the game. Now, the purpose of baseball is something, whatever you want it to be, but the goal is to win. So to be in integrity with the game, you play to win within the rules. That was the ramp C and kind of how it came to be.
Could you sort of define competing? Is it like just giving 100%, or is it that willingness to win?
When I asked Ken what it all boiled down to for him after probably 40 years of doing it, I know it had to be, maybe more. So what does it all boil down to? Because we'd have these conversations on the phone and record them, and that's how we wrote the book. And he said, getting 100% of what you got right now to win the next pitch. So what do you have right now? Oh, I feel tired. I feel like, okay, get all of that energy and focus and commitment to executing your mission on this pitch. That's competing.
I know you guys, you talked about if you have 60% that day, giving 100% of that 60%
Indeed.
to win that next pitch.
Exactly, because it's so easy to focus on how tired you are, or I can't feel my swing today. I don't feel right. I don't feel good. This guy struck me out the last 2 times, and then if the more all the energy you have on that is taken away from putting the fat part of the bat in the ball, if that's your mission. And so whatever you do have, you say, I'm clear on this mission. I'm going to execute it, even though it's almost laughable to think that I'm going to touch the ball. I'm still going to be locked in on executing that mission.
So we know that quality preparation and practice are really important because it helps us reinforce what we're learning, build confidence, and be consistent. Know it, do it, and own it are the 3 steps, a system that you teach. So can you tell us more about the steps and how they're different from each other?
To know it is to know something intellectually. Hey, I should have a routine and breathe, or I'm going to have fun. We could go back to Jeter. Oh yeah, see, I should have fun. That's right. Like if someone said, "Hey, Dr. Hanson, what should I tell my son about to have a good mental game?" I'd say, "Well, tell him to have fun," and it's correct. It's just that that's a concept, and it's like knowing how to do push-ups. I know how to do push-ups, but it doesn't help. It doesn't change my body unless I do push-ups. I got to do the push-ups, and then that's doing it. We got know it and then do it and then own it. Own it would be in push-ups would be that I know what I need to do for my push-ups. I'm not listening to someone else about how to do a push-up or how many I should do. I know for myself, this is what has me be at my best. If I'm in push-up competition, that's one thing. If I'm a coach, push-ups, I want to feel strong and have good energy. And so here's what I need to do for push-ups. It's knowing what I need to do. So know it, do it, own it. For say having fun would be, oh yeah, I know I should do it. And then you can actually go out and practice having fun. And then you then you figure out that last step. You figure out how you do it and what's fun for you. And are you a talker like a Pete Rose, Derek Jeter? Would talk a lot. He'd be talking to people when he's on deck. And some people, oh, he's not focused. Just think if he focused. Well, that's what he did to focus. As he talked and communicated, some people are like that they're talking the whole time. You go up and talk to the catcher, talk to the umpire, and that's you being ready. Whereas some people that would be, I don't care because I'm just talking. And because that isn't you. So you take the same thing of having fun. It can show up different for different people. It's a good concept because it's liberating when people are really having fun. They're more free, which gives you more access to your talent, where that's the objective. And then, okay, let me figure out how to do it. Let me practice doing it. And then I find my way to do it. Then it might be totally different or exactly the same as someone else.
Yeah, I know a lot of different ball players. They have to find their own way because one way that someone else didn't teach them may work, but not fully. And everyone has a different body. Everyone has a different way of doing things. It's important to really make things their own.
Yeah, right on.
In the game of baseball, a lot of times things don't go our way. So we have to learn how to turn that failure into a learning opportunity and compete one pitch at a time, as you say. Could you give youth baseball players like us some tips on how to stay in student mode during those times rather than getting away and maybe becoming and reacting like a red light?
So when you mean student mode, what do you mean?
Being able to learn from those failures and be able to move on.
Right. I would say the most helpful thing for that, because I'm assuming that it'd be a parent's listening as well as a 12-year-old might not be still listening after this long. But I would say have a clearly defined process for how you're going to debrief or talk about a game to maximize learning. I have a worksheet for, an example called the experience, for example, called the experience maximizer. Series of questions you go through to get the most out of an experience. Now for 12, it's like, hey, what worked? What didn't work? And what would I do differently next time? And that's a question that parents can ask. Hey, Johnny, what would you say worked today? What did you do well? What was helpful? Oh, what blah 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 blah. And what would you say didn't work very well? Or la la la. Okay, how would you apply these? And are you, as in basically saying, do more of the stuff that worked, do less of the stuff that didn't, and then put it aside. Meaning, if you really want to get into it as a parent, I don't recommend just having an open loop so that your kid might come to breakfast and say, "Oh, and another thing, Johnny, when it was first and third, you did," and then the poor kid just has to be on guard all the time because his parent might attack him with instruction or reprimand. So you could have a set time, and we're going to answer these 3 questions, and then let it go. And big thing for me with my son growing up, he is right now where my goal is for him is just to be doing something that he loved. And of course, I'm happy that it's baseball since it's such a big part of my life. He's a junior now, and he just loves to play. Last week, he came home from a game. I said, I can't wait till Thursday so we can play again. He's loving playing. And I could have crushed that by overcoaching him when he was growing up, because I know baseball fairly well and I can see things constantly that he could do better. And for me, I chose the relationship to be more important. I prioritized the relationship to me and the relationship to baseball over the specific content of doing something right or wrong. And doesn't mean that goes out the window. It just means that, let me think before I ask him how many times I've told him not to make the first or third out at third base, and he did it. How do I handle that? I think he kind of knows, but I could hammer it with him, and it would feel good. It would feel good in the moment as a parent to say, for crying out loud, CJ, how many times have I told you? And it's really tricky because you get caught up in your emotions as an adult and you love your kid and you want the best from him. You see, it could be so much better. How much do you hammer stuff and how much do you just let it go? I can't tell you. It's because it's you and it's your kid. The main thing I would say is for parents to be mindful of that. And again, my coaching was to have these 3 questions. Hey, what worked? What didn't work? What would you do differently next time? And maybe have a limited time and then just zip it up and to put the relationship with yourself, with you, and the relationship with baseball, and keep the love of it rather than, Dad, we're going to go hit some more balls, Johnny. Oh, Dad, I just want to play MLB The Show. Like that.
Yeah. One thing, you talked about the mission earlier, and one quote from the book is, keep your mission greater than your feelings. I love baseball, and my long-term goal is obviously to have a long career and play in the MLB. So when I have a clear goal set, it helps me stay focused. How can this strategy of winning really help someone stay focused on each pitch and be ready for the next thing that comes at them?
It goes right back to what I talked about. Say you're going up to bat and you don't feel confident. Your mission, we've been using in this conversation, is fat part of the bat and the ball. Oh, but says the little voice, I want to get a hit. I'm 0 for 3 and I'm really 0 for 10 in the last few games, and now I got to get a hit. So you got that competing voice and the feelings that come with that. And again, you rise above that and say, I hear you. Thank you for sharing. And my mission is to put the fat part of the bat on the ball. So keeping your mission greater than your feelings. It's like, but I don't, I don't want to I don't feel like doing my homework. Well, if I want to, play at a good college, I got to have good enough grades to do that. So even though I don't feel like doing my homework, I'm going to put my mission bigger, and I'm going to override my feelings and do what I know is right anyway. Because you aren't your thoughts and your feelings. You are a consciousness that's inside. It's like you can say out loud say loudly, but in your head, only in your head, say your name. And so you aren't the word, in that case, Evan. You're the person that heard that. And so that's a huge distinction that then gives you a chance to rise above your feelings and stay on what you're committed. Your feelings are important. I'm not poo-pooing feelings. It's a big problem if you just suppress them. They're like gauges on a dashboard of a car. They're giving you information. It's like, well, it's not saying I have to stop with gas now. It's like, but boy, you don't have too much longer. And so it's like, hey, I'm going to keep my mission greater than my feelings. I'm going to get to my girlfriend's house. Okay, well, if you run out of gas, you're not going to get there. But maybe you can get there, and so you get the gas later. I can't say you can't, But I'm saying the feelings are information, but you don't have to let them rule your behavior.
That's powerful. That's really powerful. So you talked about how you interviewed a bunch of greats like Hank Aaron and Carl Yastrzemski and Pete Rose and others. So with Hank Aaron, he said that visualizing was a big part, like you talked about earlier. So what does visualizing do to a player's success rate? And can you give us some tips on how we should visualize?
I certainly can't guarantee that doing anything is going to improve your stats. It tends to. And I can't say, oh, this would be, you visualize every day for 20 minutes, your average will go up 40 points. So I can't say that. What I can say is that top performers in any field, pre-play is the term that I like. You watch ESPN or MLB Network and you watch replays. The key for performance, well, replaying is helpful, like we just discussed with your other question. However, pre-play, where you play it in advance in your mind and really in your whole self, gives your body clarity on what you want. And it helps reduce interference. Because if you're excited about what you think is about to happen, then you have much more access to your talent. If you're fearful or unclear, then doubt and fear can come in, which causes a contraction, because we're first and foremost designed for safety. So if we're uncertain, we'll contract and freeze until we see, okay, is it safe for me to go there, into the woods or run out of the woods, from our ancestors' standpoint, or maybe in New York or something, or downtown Tampa. But it's like, okay, we're first and foremost designed for safety. So if we're not clear on something, our hundreds of thousands of years of wiring is to hesitate, is to hold back. But when we know we're safe and we know this is what I want to have happen, this is what's going to happen because I've just seen it. Oh, I'll have the ham and cheese sandwich. And I know that's what I want. Boom, I say it. And then it comes magically. And if you're saying that to your body, I want this ball to go right there. And then it's easier to free it up and trust it and let it go, because you have that clarity that you just got because you've already seen it. Sort of like, oh, I love this part in whatever, Frozen 2 or whatever movie you saw recently. My daughter will say, second time, it's different because you've seen it already. It's like, oh, I love this part. Like that.
Yeah. one of the best parts of playing on a team, I feel, and I'm sure a lot of other ball players feel, is the teamwork that you use to win together. In the book, you say, the more you focus on being a great team player, the greater you'll be as an individual. How does being a heads up baseball player help make us better teammates?
Because the goal of the game is to win. And so if you are playing at or near your best, as in you have access to your talent, that's going to help the team win the most, making you the most valuable you can be to that team. Doesn't guarantee success, but I want to be my individual best. So doing all the things that we've talked about help you do that. So that's being a great teammate, because the goal of the game is to win. Now, the purpose of the game, you can say, well, we'll do it to have fun. Okay, well, that's different, because that's the purpose. That's why you'd play. But given that you're playing, the goal, the game is designed around winning, scoring more runs than the other team. So the thing about why I would say, which I haven't said yet, is that the key to the number one tip I would give is be a great teammate, is because it gets the focus off of yourself and gets it out where it needs to be. I say out on the ball, out on the mitt. This ball's going there, as opposed to what's my average. If I get a hit this time, you're not locked in on the task. And so if it's about you, then you're not being a good teammate. You're not helping your team win the most that you can. Example, the other night, a player, being nameless, I saw be mad because he had to throw to a catcher that couldn't catch his curveball. And the catcher was sort of, didn't want to go to the bullpen and work on it. And there they are out in the game. And then, so this pitcher's unhappy with his catcher. So he's mad, and then he has to throw a fastball, and the guy hits, when he wanted to throw a curve, the guy hits a bleeder over second base. Both the second baseman and the shortstop go back out for the ball. And it drops in, and the runner runs on first. And what do you think he did? He went to second base.
Yep.
Because it wasn't covered. Who, in my opinion, should have been covering second base?
The
pitcher, right? But why wasn't he?
Because he was too focused on the last result.
He was mad, right? And then he was focusing on himself. I was saying, doggone it, Goose gave up a hit. And when he should have been, if you're in the moment, you're like, well, watching the ball, and you're watching your second baseman and shortstop both go for the ball. What do? You run and cover second base. And so that's where, if it becomes more about you, he just hurt his team, but now there's a runner on second. And then if you don't get yourself under control, you don't hold him on, and he steals third. Now you're really mad at everyone else, when there's reason to be pointing at yourself.
That's great.
That is, it actually great. Is, Evan. I'm going to agree with you on that one.
You teach the principles of heads up baseball to leaders in business as well. So what advice would you give youth baseball players on using these lessons in all parts of their lives, like for school and with family and friends?
There really isn't anything different of what I've said that wouldn't apply instantly. So I would say go back and listen to it all again and just think of it as not baseball. In terms of taking responsibility, being aware, knowing yourself. You hear my story about, what do I like? I like sports, and I like psychology. It's like, it's like a Reese's peanut butter cup, right? It's like, I like chocolate. I like peanut butter. We put them together. It's great. And so, but I wouldn't say, hey, everyone listening should go into sports psychology, because that's not them. You just tune into yourself. Well, what do I love? Well, I love baseball. Okay, go for it. There's lots of people like myself making a living in baseball. Or, I like art. I like this. I like this. Pay attention to what you become passionate about, and what really catches you, and then run with it. And hopefully your parents let you do that and encourage you to do that. I watched a documentary the other day. I'm now curious about this Billie Irish. Billie the singer?
Billie Eilish, I think.
Yeah. When she was homeschooled and her and her brother write these songs, but it was really just their parents, the way it came across to me, create an environment. It's like, hey, what do you love? What would you love to do? They expose them to different things, horses and art and music. It's like, let's stick, like the music. Okay, run with it. And they run with it, and then off you go. Doesn't guarantee that anyone is going to do that, but it's the same principle as what I'm talking about. Be tuned into something that, I love this, and run with it, and go for it, and then pick targets, and then work out a process of here's what I'm going to do to make that come true. It'd be the same. You want to be a Major League Baseball player, okay? Well, now make up a process for how you need to do and what are milestones along the way. And it's the same for building a business or getting a prom date or, go to your breath, your routine, and breathe, picture it going well, and then go. So it's all human performance. So it's all really the same.
Do you have any projects you're working on right now that you would like to share? And also, where's the best place that our Born to Baseball listeners can reach you and learn more about you?
I have going to playbigbaseball.com, where this book Play Big is, where really, if that's the age group, what's my top recommendation is the book Play Big. And there I've got a video, which is actually at playbigbaseball.teachable.com. So we'll have to give him that link. But playbigbaseball.teachable.com. That may change before too long. I'm doing some upgrades to some things, but between those two sites, we'll find it, because I teach. I haven't even talked about my ABCs in this interview, but act big, breathe big, commit big is the process that I really teach, and there's a video of me teaching it to a bunch of 12-year-olds, and so it's just super simple. And teaches all these things in like 6-minute videos with a little workbook. So
That's
that
great.
Far and away is for kids that, for your age, would be the top thing. There's not a lot of guys your age that have read all of Heads Up Baseball. So that's a top one. A project I'm working on. And Heads Up Baseball 2, of course, .com. Heads Up Baseball, all one word, 2.com. To get that book. And there's a program called Compete. They're a video program where each chapter of Heads Up Baseball 2, I have about a 12 to 14 minute video that teaches it. And again, it's the same deal. You can download a worksheet and fill in as I go through, with a practice for each week. So those are just super practical. Here's how to apply it, because it can all sound good, but what do I actually do, says the parent or a coach. Those are the two for that. And a project I'm really excited about working on right now comes off of an assessment that I have. It takes 30, 45 minutes for a guy to fill this assessment out online. And I'm measuring, it's all about awareness, about helping someone know himself better or herself. And so they take this, and here's your behavioral style. So it's like a big talker or big listener or dominate. I'm going to go and dominate, or I'm going to be very meticulous. What should I do? Well, you should be yourself. Well, what's that? Well, this will help you find that. What motivates you? Knowing what motivates you makes it easier to do things that motivate you, and for parents or for a coach to know. And then your thinking style. So there's which measures stuff you don't even think you could measure. But so it's super cool. And what I've used it for many years, probably 8-9 years, individually with athletes. They fill it out. Like if we were working together, I would have you take this, and then we'd sit and go through it, and we'd identify your path. Your path is your process, parts of you, your identity, your values, and then behavioral, style. And then here's what you don't do well. Here's the blind spots for you to look out. So you read Heads Up Baseball, you read Play Big. It's great, obviously, but which page applies the most to me right now? I don't know, but I can tell you that after you take this, we can really target, here's what you need to do, the way you would with the swing. A guy puts a swing on videos like, look, Evan, here's what you're doing with your hands. It's giving you trouble. Oh yeah, I see that. But this is that for the mental game. And then where I'm going with it now is that someone can take it. And normally in all these years, you have to go through it with me. You can still do that, and it's the best thing to do. However, now I have it where a whole team or groups of people can take it and then go through videos where I am instructing them, and they create something called a self-scouting report where you really get to know yourself. And then you tweak that a little bit to be able to have a one-on-one meeting with your coach to go through, that's the little form called How to Coach Me, and to build that relationship. And so that's just a little process that you go through to build what I think really becomes at the heart of it all, which is relationship. First of all, relationship with yourself, knowing yourself. And secondly, relationship with your coach. When the coach knows you really well, then you communicate and there's less interference, less noise. You can stay on target more and you're not worried about what the coach is, and the coach is helping instead of getting in the way. And also, if you do it at the team level, when a team all understands and knows themselves better, the way my Luther team did, we got to know each other. It's like, oh yeah, that's that guy and that's that guy and he's different. And this speeds up that process. So now I have it as a process that whole team can go through, a whole travel organization could go through and really speed up what really becomes the key. When I started with the Yankees, and I'll finish with this, was actually before how I got the Yankees gig, was I talked to these 5 minor league managers, and I talked to them individually first, and we had a group meeting. And I said, well, what's the number one key to the whole thing? And they said, the relationship. It's the relationship, the respect, not like you're going out to the movies or dinner. You can, but it's really about the connection and the relationship and the respect. When that's there, you can take off. When it's not there, I don't like that guy, I don't like that guy, I don't get that guy, what's wrong with that guy, then the information can't flow back and forth. So you talk to a high-end coach and they'll say it's a relationship. Joe Madden said, I'm in the relationship business. When he went to the Cubs, he said first 3 weeks was only for him relationship building. It's that huge. So it's my project is a relationship building system.
Those sound like great resources. Yeah, that's really awesome. Thank you so much for being here and sharing great knowledge with the Born to Baseball community and help taking our game to the next level.
You're welcome. That's my goal. So I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And you did a great job. You had some really big league questions.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening in. We really hoped you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and be the first to know when new episodes launch. Check us out at borntobaseball.com for free resources and new gear. Download the Born to Baseball app to have real-time conversations, share your game and video highlights, and be celebrated by our BTB team. And of course, on social media, at Born to Baseball, where we can connect live. Now, let's play ball.
Check it out.